everything that we have done to content has been to draw the viewer inside the content. Digital projection, large screens, surround sound, Dolby Atmos, even the, I mean, these are not those chairs, but even the chairs that wobble, you know, when something happens on screen, this is all to draw the viewer inside the content as much as possible. So the immersive industry actually started much before what we think, when we think it started, right? And we're going to understand a little bit. So there are quite a few examples that I've got. I don't know whether I'll get time to show you all of them, but let's get going. So next. So why immersive? Why is it needed? Why was it needed? Right? You had cinema, you had television, you had OTT. सब ठीक चल रहा था. What is the issue? क्यों चाहिए? It's primarily because of people of her age. Right? They were no longer, like I was happy that there was just content. Right? Because I grew up when there were 2-3 TV channels, and when cable started, I'm like, oh my God, this is heaven. Right? But this current generation, my kids, they're not like that. They're not happy with just content. They want content to be authentic and accessible and convenient and cool and customized and fun and all that. And as expected, the market responds and they create enabling technologies, which are a bunch of these, to create the user experience. Hence, the immersive industry was born. It was a demand-based growth, right? Demand hua, industry grow hui. Next. So, I've used the word immersive some 15 times now. So what is the immersive industry? What is immersion? Is there something known as immersion? ऐसी कुछ चीज है कि ऐसी शब्द है जो बनाया हुआ है? Question. How many senses do humans have? 5, 6? Any answer other than 5 or 6? Okay, you are all wrong. Next. So typically we think 5, and high school biology has completely failed us on this one. They have not kept in touch. दुनिया में क्या हो रहा है, साइंस कहाँ जा रहा है, उसे हाई स्कूल बायोलॉजी का कोई संबंध नहीं है, क्योंकि वो अभी भी 5 और 6 सिखाते हैं. एक्चुअली हमारे पास 27 सेंसेस है, 27 senses. Next. So these are the 5 what we call key organ-based senses. In addition to that, you also have other organ-based senses, and you have what you call perception-based senses, which is basically the medical fraternity's way of saying, I don't know how this happens. We know very little about the human body. We know even little less about the human mind. Right? Next. So these are the organ-based senses on the right. And they're all individual specific senses. And then on the left, you see these perception-based senses. Now, you may think, what is a perception-based sense? And why is it like that? So I'm just going to give you one example, and then we'll kind of move on to the real topic. So everybody here knows somebody or has a family friend or someone who has motion sickness. Yes? Somebody, right? Why does motion sickness happen? When the person themselves is driving the car, कुछ नहीं होता, सब ठीक है. But जैसे ही वो passenger seat में बैठे हैं या पीछे बैठे हैं, now suddenly they're puking, throwing up, उल्टी कर रहे हैं सब जगह. क्यों? फर्क क्या है? रोड के गड्ढे चेंज नहीं हुए हैं. The bumps and all on the road are the same. So what is the difference? So those people have an overdeveloped sense of agency, right? Which we colloquially call control. There are some people who have a very well-developed sense of time. Right? Time is an active process. It's not a passive process. So for example, everybody has this one friend in the group, जो उसको आप पूछोगे अभी टाइम क्या है, तो आपको सही सही बता देगा without looking at the watch. 4:30 बजे है, 4:45, right? Like that. How are they able to do that? It's because they have a really, really well-developed sense of time. And there are some people who have no idea what time it is. Right? So, next. So the reason we're talking about all this is because immersion is the 5th perception-based sense. That's why this biology class happened, right? So the whole point is that perception is a sense. It is a unique, immersion is a sense. It is a unique sense. We still don't know why it happens, how it happens, where that experience comes from, but it happens. ये होता है. नेक्स्ट. और ये हमको पता है होता है इसके वजह से क्योंकि इसके हम we see the effect, we see the impact of this, right? So there is two types of immersion. There is physical, technical immersion. So right now you are immersed in this room, or if you are swimming in a pool, you're immersed in water. That's physical immersion, technical immersion. And cognitive immersion is where your mind is immersed. And our entire industry is based on cognitive immersion. Because everything in films is fake, but we all react to it like it's real. So your mind is immersed. So there's spatial immersion where you feel like you're part of the image that you see or part of the video that you see. There's temporal immersion where you feel like you're part of the storyline. So in every friend group, there is one friend who is like, nahi, nahi, ye to mujhe ending pata tha. In a suspense one, they're like, I know this is going to happen. Whereas there are other people who really get affected by the twists. So the people who really get affected by the twists have a well-developed sense of temporal immersion. So they really get into the storyline, the timeline of the film that they're watching or the content that they're watching, right? Same thing. So immersion is not just something that is kind of physical, but it also happens for the mind. And that's really where the immersive industry kicks off from. वहाँ से शुरू होती है, right? Okay, now the first thing that everybody thinks about when you talk about immersion is you talk about 3D. सबको लगा 3D immersive है, right? 3D is the first thing that comes to mind. But there are many 3Ds. Which 3D are we talking about next? So the first is 3D animation. Right? तो आप normal screen पे देखते हो, लेकिन वो 3D dimension, it looks like it has 3 dimensions. Animation, any animation. Lion King, right? Or any Indian animation also. Second is stereoscopy. जो आप यहाँ theater में आते हो, glasses पहनते हो और आप देखते हो, आपको 3D लगता है. Where basically your left and right eye is receiving a separate image and the mind is putting it together and the mind is creating the depth. Because the left and the right eye is seeing different images. Actually, that's why if you see those glasses, one is horizontally polarized, one is vertically polarized. And on the screen, there are 2 separate images that are projected. One horizontally polarized and one vertically polarized, right? And the third 3D, which is what happens when you do room